two classes ago. I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri until I was about 13. I was getting ready to turn 14 in the fall of 1980. My parents had a house built in Kansas City, Kansas from the ground up, and we had never seen anything like that. I have 2 older sisters and 4 younger brothers. So there's 7 of us kids. And I'm kind of in the middle, the third of 7. Weird. So there was always something to do. We'd watch wrestling on Saturday mornings, and then we'd pull the mattresses off of our twin beds and have wrestling matches. It was not a bad childhood. I learned a strong work ethic from my parents, how to be on time and dependable. There was a sense of responsibility. However, in 2013, I did not take responsibility for how I was going to pay my rent and quit my job before I had another one. That is how I became homeless. My grandfather was 96 and a half when he passed away. He was my father's father. He was my last living grandparent, but he passed away in 2009. So, and I was asked to sing at his funeral service, which I thought was an honor, but at the same time, I'm like, I really don't have closure, whatever. Anyway,
How'd you make it to Lincoln?
I was getting there. That's the first question. Look, lady, if I'm gonna be talking,
you do it.
Okay. I first came to Lincoln as a sophomore in high school in Kansas City, and I came on a weekend where it was during football season, and I had never experienced cold like it was here in Kansas City. So I had to wear like 4 layers of clothes, and anyway, I originally came to Lincoln to train to be an Italian opera singer. Well, that didn't happen because 1, I was older than most of the kids that had come to college here at the university. When I got here, I was what they call a non-traditional student, which means that I was about 25, 26 when I got here. When did things start to go downhill? I mentioned earlier that I quit my telemarketing job before I had another job, which after so many months of not paying rent, the landlord's like, we can't help you. We extended your stay for 2 extra months and you still don't have a job. You don't have disability. You don't have any supplemental income. You have to leave. So a friend of mine goes, well, I'm not gonna have you go to the city mission, which was an option. And if I need it, still is, but I don't. And I went to stay with a friend of mine, but she had a 1-bedroom apartment, and I got to sleep on her lumpy couch. So when you make bad choices, you have to suffer the consequences. What would I say caused my homelessness? I just explained. No job, no realistic goal setting, and I hadn't taken any initiative to find a job at that time. When I first became homeless, I was scared. I cried for the first week. Every day at some point I cried. Even though I was in a friend's apartment and starting to kind of feel a little independent, I had my own key, my own mailbox key. I could come and go when I wanted to. Most of my time was spent at the library trying to update my resume online and trying to find a job. And in the meantime, I had food stamps every month, but then I was going to the Gathering Place, which is a soup kitchen where you can get a hot lunch or a brown bag lunch and then a hot meal at dinner time every day. Matt Talbot also became one of my hangouts, and the same thing applied. You can get a good lunch and a nutritious dinner at both those places. Those two meals I know about every day. Plus, there were things like food net sites Monday through Saturday where you go to. Several churches in Lincoln are involved with, like Russ's and Super Saver and Trader Joe's, about taking their groceries that have like a week left, or day-old bread, or cinnamon rolls that didn't get sold in the bakery or whatever, cookies and stuff like that, milks, cheeses, fruits, vegetables, and giving them to people that are low income or no income, and distributing them through the churches. And it was a learning experience for me being homeless, because the whole time I was living with my parents, I took things for granted. And as soon as I quit my job and realized that, hey, there's no more money, I gotta go. I gotta stay with Lori until I get back on my feet. It was a scary time, because being irresponsible and making those rash decisions just because I didn't like the job that I had and hadn't properly planned for my future at the time, I ended up homeless. That can happen. However, if you have a plan, you don't have to stay homeless forever. But please do not take for granted the facilities and the things that are provided to you right now. Your juniors in high school. Next year is going to be full of responsible grown-up decisions. Am I going to go to college? Will I get a job and start saving money? Am I going to move out of my parents' house? Am I going to stay there for a couple of years? What am I going to do about my life? What do I want to do? What am I good at? Because if you find something that you're good at, you won't be disappointed a day in your life. Please learn how to save money. If it's $5, usually you can start a savings account off of your parents' checking at a bank, because you're their kid, and it's usually like $5 or $10 to start it. Please start a savings account and learn from somebody. I don't care if it's the accountant that does your parents' taxes or your math teacher here at school. Learn how to budget your money, how to sit down and say, these bills come every month. This is how much money I have. And then decide what a luxury item is and what the necessities are. You gotta have somewhere to sleep. You gotta have clothes to wear. You gotta have food to eat. And it's good to have money just in case of an emergency. But please, 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 as you're making decisions about your life and getting ready to walk across and get your diplomas next year, part of that is learning how to be a responsible citizen. And those 4 things I just talked about: having a budget, making good decisions about your life and what you're going to do with it. If you're going to go to college and be the best astronaut, teacher, coach, football player, whatever, do it with some sense of responsibility for your own life. I'm going to talk about you guys' questions and how they relate to my life. The reason that your teacher has me here is because in Glass Castle, Miss Walls talks about growing up in a family of 4 and having an alcoholic dad and a mom who probably had diabetes, but they didn't really talk about it then. Anyway, imagine trying to split a Snickers candy bar, not the king size, just a regular Snickers candy bar, into 9 pieces. So everybody in the family could have a bite of chocolate. That's hard to do. The kinds of questions that you guys asked me, I went through, I told your teacher that, I went through last night and just carefully planned how I would answer them. How did I become homeless? We talked about that. I made a poor decision. Kayla Chambers asked this question. Where were my parents and friends and siblings at during this point in my life or place in my life? That's a good question. I didn't tell my parents about me being homeless. I called my aunt in St. Louis, Missouri, and told her, my mother's sister. She's older than my mom. And during the holiday season of 2013 is when she decided to tell my parents. So then when I went home for Christmas, they were like, so when were you planning on telling me? And I'm like, never. You're too old, you're retired, I'm past 35, I need to be able to take care of myself. So it was a learning experience because I had taken those things for granted, having a bed to sleep in, clothes on my back, food and heat in the winter and air in the summer. I had to learn how to budget. I had to learn how to save my money and start a savings account. I had to learn how to get into a regular routine. I had to learn what resources were available to me without having any money because I didn't have any. I didn't have a job at the time. It taught me how to be responsible, and I think it's the best lesson in my life that I've learned so far. Where was the worst place I slept? Nick wants to know. The worst place I had to sleep, and it was only for one night. I actually had to sleep outside. Emily doesn't know that. It was one night and it was snow mixed with rain, which they call freezing rain, I guess. And I had to sleep under an overpass, the West Oak Ridge. But I survived that, and once that happened to me, I'm like, never again. But I told the class 2 periods ago, never say never, because I didn't ever think I would be homeless, and guess what? I was. Who has been the most help in your life, and how did they help? The people that have been the most helpful were my caseworker at the Department of Health and Human Services, my counselor at the Vocational Rehabilitation Facility, my case manager at Fresh Start for homeless women, and the people from my church who prayed for me and helped me by encouraging me to do the right thing. And you don't always know what that is until you get in a hard situation, and then they were there when I needed them. Ryan wants to know where I worked as a teenager. My very first job, I was 14 years old. Where's Ryan?
Raise your hand, yeah. So she can see, yeah, there you go.
My very first job, I was 14 years old. I worked for Wendy's in Kansas City. And it was a pretty big deal because I was in 8th grade and nobody I knew had a job, and I did. So I was able to get the time off of work to go to my junior and senior prom and homecoming and spring fest and whatever else I wanted to do. And they had a senior trip. We went to World of Fun for like, a weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I had money for those kinds of things because I was working. I thought that was pretty cool. So my first job as a teenager was at Wendy's. Um, I didn't miss very many meals, because I found out about the gathering place in Matt Talbot and I was getting food stamps. So, yes, I graduated from high school. I have my diploma. It's been almost 30 years since I was in high school. I don't like talking about that. Anyway, and I attended the University of Nebraska for 2.5 years. I think I answered all these questions. Let me see. Somebody, Colin asked me how old I am. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna tell you what I told your teacher. Real ladies never tell how old they are, but since you asked, and I'm kinda at your mercy, cause this is your classroom, and I'm a guest in it, I'll tell you. I'll be 48 November the 12th, so I'm 47. Do I look 47?
You look like 36.
Thank you. Can I pay you to say that? Or just walk around all day long and say, Mona, you look 36. Okay. Bailey wanted to know what it is like to be homeless. Where's Bailey? Bailey, the first, like I said earlier in my introduction part, that first week, every day at some point, I would be sitting in the library and I'd cry. I felt like a complete failure, like the decisions and choices I had made weren't good enough. And like I said, had I not been homeless, I wouldn't have learned the responsibility that I have now. And I wouldn't have 2 jobs now. I wouldn't be living in a nicer apartment on my own again, and back on my feet as a person. So, like I said, don't take for granted what your parents are providing for you right now, because once you graduate from high school, you're gonna have to start making some grown-up and adult decisions. Alex wants to know. Alex, where are you? Oh,
There's 2 of them.
Which one is it?
Alex Coleman.
Oh, that's
Sit down, sit down. Your teacher seems
I'm
to
trying to
think,
help you.
you know, she thinks I'm like a blind person that's never read Braille before, you know, it's like, no, I don't need you to hold my hand, I'll be okay. Okay, Alex wants to know, what is a goal that I wanted to accomplish as a kid, and did I achieve it? Well, I wanted to sing Italian opera really bad. However, since I had my tonsils out when I was 31 instead of when I was 4 or 5, that's not gonna happen. However, I do still get to sing, which is a good thing. So, I don't know how to, did that answer your question? Okay. Sydney, where are you? Sydney wants to know, how did I look at homeless people before and after being homeless? It taught me not to judge anybody, because you don't know what circumstances put them in that situation. However, there are people who panhandle with cardboard signs that I wish I could just have like 3 minutes of their time in a dark room with a baseball bat. Because I think they take advantage of the system that could be working to help them be better people. Instead, they panhandle and get money, and then they sit in Matt Talbot or the gathering place and say, oh, man, I made like $50 and I went and got a whole pint of gin. Really? You know what I'm saying? They could be doing so much better for themselves. So people that panhandle with their cardboard signs, I'm not passing judgment on them. There are a few that I've met that I'd really be suspicious of. But it doesn't allow you to be closed-minded and just say, all homeless people are panhandlers. You can't say that, because you don't know how that came to be. Before I was homeless, I was always, kind of looking down my nose, but it was a real wake-up call when I became one who was homeless. So just be careful, because how you treat people has effects in the long run. Did I answer your question? Yeah. Let's see. Justin wants to know, how did I get through the hard times? I had a cell phone, and a lot of different people helped me to keep it on and maintain it so that I could call my family if I got homesick. I had really good friends, especially the ones that let me stay in their apartment till I got back on my feet. So I didn't really experience hard times. It was just those first couple of weeks of not knowing for sure where I was gonna live. And then once I got shelter established, I already had a food stamp card. I knew where to go to get a hot meal if I needed it, instead of cooking every night or whatever. So, I mean, it worked out that, I had a plan. I learned how to start a savings account. I learned how to budget at 35 years old, and please don't wait till then. Hopefully you won't have to go through as hard a time as Ms. Walls went through or as I went through, because you're taking advice from me now. You're a junior, next year you'll be making, like I said, some really big, responsible life decisions and choices. Learn how to do a budget, just a monthly thing. If you wanna have a latte once a week, or if you wanna have chocolate milk or licorice or whatever on movie night, or a pizza night, or you wanna go in, halves or four ways with people to watch a pay-per-view, then those kind of things take decision making, and can you really afford to do it? Learn how to do that now so you don't ever have to experience what I went through being homeless. Okay? Did that help you? Okay, I really can't read this. Now you will have to help
There
me.
you go. Sam, at what point?
No,
Question?
that part.
Okay, Sam,
I
right
just
here.
needed to know, Sam, huh? Sam, okay. Oh, at what point did I become homeless? Yeah, well, like I said, they were nice to me for about 5 months. And technically, I found out it is actually a law in Lincoln, and an ordinance is what they call it. It's an ordinance if you're in an apartment and you haven't paid rent for 3 months. After 3 months, they can have the sheriff's department escort you out. You and your furniture and whatever. And I have a nice 32-inch flat screen TV that I didn't ever want to be thrown out of any place, because the first thing I thought was, they're gonna crack the screen on my TV and I'll be really mad. Just kidding. But I was able to stay at the place where I was for 5 months. So they extended me for 2 extra months, and I wasn't able to get disability or any help at first, but I had a plan. So I made some bad choices and bad decisions, but I had a plan on how to fix it and become unhomeless. Does that help you?
Yeah.
Did anybody else have any questions before my life now, I have 2 jobs. I work at Casey's General Store on South 13th Street in Lincoln, and there is a new barbecue restaurant that is opening on 33rd and Cornhusker Highway, and I have part-time jobs with both of those establishments. I have my own apartment. And I ride the bus to work, and when I can't, I get rides from good friends or I walk. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, does anyone else have any other questions about her life or what she's experienced or what it was like? What steps?
When you were homeless, like, and you didn't have a job, what did you do to make money?
I didn't have to have money. That's a good question though. I had $10 in the only savings account that I have in Lincoln right now. And there were days where I wanted to just, close my account and get the $10 out. It was very tempting. What's your name?
Jesse.
Jesse. It was very tempting to just say, to heck with this. I'm just gonna take the $10 out and close the account. Who cares? But there were other ways for me to, get a bus pass for a month, or to get enough food and, pay my last check, I was able to pay my last light bill and stuff like that. So when it came time for me to get a job or, really get destitute for money, I was interviewing for 2 prospective jobs and got it. So it was tempting though. I wouldn't be honest if I didn't tell you that it was hard, because there were things that I wanted to do or felt like I needed to do to hang out with my friends, and I couldn't because I couldn't afford it. I didn't have the money.
Right.
So that part of it was hard. Hi.
How long did it take you to get out of homelessness? Like, how long did it take you to get out of
It took me about 10 months, which is almost a year, and it was kind of scary because May, June, July, the first 5 months, I didn't know what to do. To be quite honest with you, I didn't know what to do. I knew that I hadn't made a responsible choice, so I had to suffer the consequences. But I didn't know things would just pick up so rapidly for me, and they did. Does that make sense? So those first 5 months, I had no clue. And even though grown-ups try to act like they know everything, they don't. Anybody else? Okay, before I sit down, your teacher explained that she met me because she heard me sing in church. I don't know why she told you that, but I am gonna sing for you just a little bit, just because I'm a nice person.
She did do this for the last class, so there you go.
So, if you guys don't look directly at me, I will sing for you. Why is that funny, Emily?
Yes. You have a great question.
Whatever, you think so. Okay, so don't look and I'll sing for you, okay? "'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus, just to take him at his word, just to rest upon his promise, just to know thus saith the Lord. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I prove him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more."
Woo! There you go. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good.
Okay, tomorrow we are going to be doing just a little bit of reflection, writing at the very beginning of the class period, and then we'll get into what the rest of the quarter is going to look like. If you think of any other questions, that kind of thing, you can definitely ask me. Continue to push yourself to read. Don't leave until Thursday night before the quiz. And again, if you have any questions on that, please let me know.
I'll read 30 pages just for 2 hours for it.